Gwen. It's great to be up here. This is our first time back in the saddle after the Integra Gold exercise, having just come off of a great win for our shareholders, a 6 times return in just 4 years, culminating in a $600 million transaction earlier this summer. So you all know that rolling stones gather no moss, and we didn't lose any time. Our gang, we reassembled the band this past summer. We did our homework, and we launched Integra Resources earlier this week, or passionately as we call Integra 2.0. We're a newly trading company on the TSX Venture Exchange, and we're really bringing the magic back together again, but this time we're bringing it back in Idaho instead of Quebec. But as you'll see throughout the presentation, many similarities for those of you who followed us in the Integra Gold story. Forward-looking statements. And so what does this new asset look like? Well, we had a number of boxes that we needed to tick as a group, identifying what our sweet spot is, what our core strength is, and it really was a series of things. We needed an asset in a first world jurisdiction with a mining history, a focus on this time high-grade and low-grade mineralization, this time in Idaho, first world jurisdiction, access and infrastructure, and the acquisition of the DeLamar asset from Kinross really ticks all these boxes. As you'll see, an abundance of gold, in some cases extremely high grades of gold and silver that are sitting in southwestern Idaho. It has a historical track record of production of about 1.6 million ounces of gold, and about 100 million ounces of silver have been produced from this district. Metallurgy all looks good. Nothing keeps us awake at nights on that end. And this is very much an under-the-radar opportunity. Sitting in Kinross's portfolio of projects for about 20 years in reclamation mode, nobody knew about this asset except us, obviously, as of about 3 or 4 months back. We decided this time in the newest incarnation of Integra to daylight with a resource, really underpinning the value of this company straight out of the gate. We put out a 43-101 resource, which quoted a 2.7 million ounce resource sitting at surface. So this is the underpinning of value for this company, and it's a great place for us to start. Obviously, this is a past mining situation, so permitting, we feel, is not going to be a huge issue in the future. And true to Integra form, we tend to advance this asset pretty quickly. We believe with an aggressive drilling program, 18 to 24 months from now, we'll have a series of resource updates and a PEA to deliver to our shareholders. So it's got that flavor of high grade and low grade, and certainly to me, anyway, it's really important to have that to deliver to shareholders. It's that kind of optionality that protects you as a shareholder in various sort of investment environments and metals prices. And as you'll see later on in the presentation, that certainly is true from a high-grade perspective. Moving on to the board and management, I mentioned that we got the band back together again. Won't go through the details of who we are. A couple of new additions. Dave Oram, co-founder of Sandstorm. He joined the board very recently. It's great to have Dave on board. And Randall Oliphant as a strategic advisor to the board. Randall is a great guy, invested a lot of his own money into this story, and Randall was obviously former CEO of Barrick Gold in the past, so it's great to have him on board. Capitalization and ownership structure, very tight structure, 56 million shares outstanding. Management insiders have a lot of skin in the game this time around. We've invested millions of our own dollars into this story up to now, and we will continue to follow our investment going forward. Just a brief comment on our large retail shareholder base, which is what we just did. We closed an oversubscribed financing to the tune of $27 million, and that list reads like the who's who of mining investment. So currently we have just over $18 million in the treasury to work with towards advancing the project. So what do we love about Idaho? Well, there's lots that we love about Idaho. Obviously, there's a lot of companies moving into Idaho. We love Idaho as much as we love Quebec. And we feel that the permitting regime there is right towards advancing projects quickly and out of the gate. It's a great jurisdiction for us to operate in. So in terms of the mining history, again, very much a tale of two production histories. First, in the 1883 to 1910, some spectacular gold grades and silver grades were mined underground at these mining operations. You go back through the historical literature, you see frequent reference to veins that were running 30 to 60 grams per ton, of stopes that are 15 gram per ton gold cutoff. So, you know, there's an abundance of history, and in fact, about 730,000 ounces of gold and 50 million ounces of silver were produced in that manner. And then roll the clock forward to the late 70s and into the late 90s. Kinross moved to produce from open pit mining near surface low-grade ores, and again, that's the focus of the resource that we put out earlier this week. There's a lot of that stuff remaining on surface, and we know it was fed by something, and it was those high-grade veins that fed the low-grade mineralization at surface. This was a very profitable mining operation for a number of years. It survived right through to nuclear winter in 1998 and made a lot of money for the company. Geology won't go into too much detail, just suffice to say that this is a low sulfidation epithermal system, and these deposits tend to be very, very big. There's some great analogs right across the border from us into Nevada. In fact, North Nevada is equal to southwestern Idaho when it comes to these types of deposits. Cross-section through the deposit. Again, I won't bore you with too many geological details, but suffice to say that the high-grade feeders are feeding that low-grade mineralization that was mined by Kinross. And how do we know this? Well, we've gone back through the historical records. The odd Kinross drill hole did intercept some spectacular grades very near surface, and it's this dislocation pattern that you can see, and you don't need to be a geologist to identify this. That blue band moves up above the piece to the right, and that top upper left-hand corner of Summer Camp moves up above that. And so what that means is the carrot for us, the really high-grade feeder mineralization, is close to surface. And how do we know that? Well, this is what I mean by high grades. So the odd Kinross drill hole did pierce through the low grade and into high grade. And as you can see for yourselves, and apologies, some of these are in feet, 105 grams per ton over 10 meters, 30 meters of 10 grams per ton, 116 grams per ton silver. And there's just a handful of holes that are into this type of mineralization. This is what the old-timers mined back in the late 1800s, and that's what we're going to be going for straight out of the gate this coming winter. I mentioned that we put out a resource estimate earlier on this year, and 2.7 million ounces low grade at a 0.3 gold equivalent cutoff. We believe that this is potentially heap leachable, subject to further study. And if you want to look at it on a higher grade perspective, raise the cutoff to 0.75 grams equivalent for about 1.4 million ounces. Again, this is the residual value of resource that underpins us straight out of the gate as a new company, and it's a great place to start. So again, talking about that optionality of high grade and low grade, it protects you as the investor through good times and bad, and the key for us as we move forward is to maintain that optionality as long as we can. Keep that low grade growing, grow a high grade resource, look at a PA study that potentially looks at heap leaching on site, potentially looks at underground high-grade mining on site, or potentially looks at both. And that was key to us in Integra Gold, maintaining that optionality on different deposits, and we're going to do the same thing here. In terms of news events to come forward, there's going to be a steady stream of news, all of this culminating in a resource estimate and then moving on to a PEA within 18 to 24 months. So again, all the ingredients are there: low risk, first world jurisdiction, access infrastructure, great mining history to pin ourselves on as an investor. You should care about that sort of thing as we do. So we started our lives as Integra, or we left our lives as Integra Gold a number of months ago. Being on the upper left-hand corner of that valuation curve, we were very comfortable there for a long period of time. And man, does it suck to be on the other side of this graph starting out. But I have to say that's the opportunity for us and for you as investors. We're getting in on the ground floor of what's something that looks very much like Sigma Lamac when we first got going. So on that note, we're at it again, this time in Idaho. If you have any questions, come and talk to us outside. Thank you.